Good evening, boys and girls. Are you ready for bed? Are you ready for another story? Well, tonight's story is called Peter, the boy who stood up straight with his shoulders back. This is part of 13 stories, and the first one was about Peter who broke all the rules. And this one is about Peter who actually stood up straight and put his shoulders back, and his life changed forever. Once upon a time, there was a boy called Peter, and he lived in a time when no boys and girls went to school. It's kind of like now in some countries because of the outbreak of some virus. And so he found himself at home with his 5 brothers, and because he lived in an apartment block, his brothers obviously had lots of friends, and his friends came to play. But they didn't come to play as you know, like running around and hiding and seeking and playing pirates and cops and robbers and all that kind of thing. Playing to them was just sitting on the sofa with a phone or a switch or something like that. And now you might think, why are 10 boys sitting on the sofa playing games all day? Well, that's because Peter's mummy and daddy had to work. If you've got 6 boys in your family who eat very, very well, then mummy and daddy usually have to work. And in this family, mummy and daddy worked long hours. They would be gone at 7 o'clock in the morning and wouldn't come back until 7 o'clock at night. That's 12 straight hours. Peter and his brothers got up about 8. So that meant they had 11 hours by themselves. At about 9:30 or even 10, Peter's brothers' friends would start piling into the house. You see, they had a very long sofa, and so about 8 of the little boys and the big boys could sit together and play. Peter, being the youngest, would always want to sit with his brothers, and Peter was the only one that did not have a cell phone, and that made him quite sad. And in particular, he was even more sad and frustrated and angry because now his brothers and his brothers' friends were all sitting there on the sofa playing with their phones and the switch. But Peter didn't even have a phone or a switch. He was just one of those boys that had a sketchbook, some colouring pens, and some Lego. But it's no fun playing Lego by yourself, especially when you've got 9 other older boys sitting there laughing and giggling on the sofa. And so, after 2 or 3 weeks at home, Peter had a desire. His only desire was to join his brothers on the sofa. And every day he would stand there in front of them all and beg them to sit on the sofa. But like I said, there was only space for about 8, and there was usually 10 or more kids there. And the funny thing was, if you were to look in that living room at all the boys, you would see that they were slouching, like almost lying down playing the games. They were never sitting up straight. And so, one day, I think it was on a Sunday when the other friends were staying home, there was a space on the sofa. And so his brothers let Peter sit down. They didn't let him play, they just let him sit down next to and watch as they played. Peter felt a bit uncomfortable at first, slouching, but then after 4 hours, his body got used to it and his muscles relaxed and his back started to arch in like a C shape or a little like a cup. And he felt very comfortable. And he started to giggle and laugh and get really engrossed or concentrating on his brothers playing the games. And they were playing Brawl Stars and Clash of Clans and PUBG and Minecraft. And one of them had a Switch with Zelda. So it's quite fun to watch these boys playing the games, looking straight ahead at this piece of plastic and metal. And day after day, Peter got incorporated into this group of slouchers. And day by day, Peter got told what to do and ordered around. "Go and make me some coffee, will you, Peter?" "But Mum said you're not allowed to drink coffee yet. You're only 7. You're only 9. You're only 12. "Yeah, but Mum and Dad not here. Go and make me a coffee. Go and make me some noodles, Peter. Go and get me some snacks. Go down to the shop and buy me some crisps, will you?" Peter, before this, was quite a stubborn boy, and he would always refuse. But somehow, sitting on this sofa, slouching around, he started to feel like he couldn't say no. He both wanted to be part of the group, and he felt powerless to the bigger boys. And slouching down seemed to take away his power, and he drifted to the bottom of the ranking. He couldn't play, he didn't have a phone, and he couldn't say no, and he was always slouching. Peter got slowly sick of this, and one night he had a dream, and he had a dream about some lobsters, and he saw the floor of the ocean full of these lobsters battling around and fighting around, and he'd heard somewhere that the lobsters have a hierarchy, and that if there's a lobster that gets beaten, it starts to sink down the hierarchy. Now a hierarchy is just like a league board for the players, and the top player is the boss, and the bottom player is the weakest. And Peter, being stubborn, didn't want to be the bottom player, even though he didn't have a phone. And he read somewhere that if he just stood up straight with his shoulders back, he could turn things around. And so the next day, when his brothers told him to come and sit down next to them, come and slouch down, he said, "No, I don't want to. I'm going to stand here with my shoulders straight. Look at me. I'm straight up like a die. I'm standing 90 degrees. Look at you guys, about 30 degrees. What's going on? Go and make me some coffee, Peter." "No, I will not make you any coffee." "Go on." "No, I will not." And in that instant, while Peter was standing up straight with his shoulders back, what his brothers, the power that his brothers had over him before then, seemed to bounce off him, seemed to deflect from his posture, seemed to dissolve with his straightness. One of the boys shouted louder, "Hey, who do you think you are? Go and get me some coffee now." "Mom said you're not allowed to drink coffee, you're only 12. "Yeah, but Mom's not here, is she?" "Well, I don't care, that's not right. You shouldn't be drinking coffee. You should listen to your Mom and Dad." And the boy, who had been slouching, tried to get up, but he'd been slouching for weeks, and his back was all bent. Not like Peter's. Peter's back was straight. And so suddenly, Peter felt himself rising up the leaderboard. And even though he didn't have a phone, and even though he didn't play any games, he was starting to climb up the ranking. This made Peter feel much better, and he walked back to his room and played with his Lego by himself with a big smile on his face. After lunch he came back, and he stood there with his shoulders straight. "Go and get me some noodles, Peter. Go to the shop. Go and buy some bread. I want some toast." "No, go and get it yourself," said Peter, the youngest of these 6 boys. The brother's eyes lit up. "What did you just say?" "I said, get it yourself. I'm not going to do anything for you now." "Well, The oldest brother tried to lift himself up by his elbows, but he'd gotten so weak and slouchy over the weeks that he just fell back. Peter then knew he'd reached the top of the leaderboard, and even though he was shorter than everybody else, and even though he was the youngest, he felt like he was in charge. He did go to the shops, but he bought himself something else and ate it there at the table with a straight back in front of his brothers, who were slouching and stuck on the sofa. And then he went back to his room and started to build with his Lego. And he felt very good about himself, and so that's the story about Peter, who stood up straight with his shoulders back. And there's a good book that I've just been trying to read, chapter by chapter, about rules and how you should live your life. And now it's just a book. And I'm not saying you should do anything, because who am I to judge? But if you do stand up straight with your shoulders back, it can make a difference. So why don't you try tomorrow? And I would love you to dream about lobsters and being straight and tall. Good night. The end.